Hello, everybody. I would like to start by introducing myself. So my name is Arthur Mourão, Arthur Mourão, and I will share a little bit of my experiences while being a student and after while working and now having a company, like teaching English, basically. So I have had experiences working in traditional courses, non-traditional when I started my journey learning English. And I started as an adult, so I didn't start when I was young. So it was quite challenging. So I had a lot of experiences, traditional schools, non-traditional schools, small schools, very well, like big schools, native teachers, non-native teachers. So I went through so much before I actually understood and I learned how to speak English. And then after that, I had some experiences abroad. I lived in Australia for 4 years in total. The first 2 years, the first 1.5 year, I spent first doing an English course, then doing my major. I have a major in civil engineering. So I did 1 year of my major in Australia at Monash University. And after that, I also had a research project in Australia. And I came back to Brazil. I finished my degree here and I went back to Australia to spend another 2 years, a little bit over 2 years, working as a civil engineer. So I had a lot of experience, like learning English and actually communicating in English while living in Australia, for example. And after that, I decided to start my own business. My school is called AM Consultoria de Inglês. And in order to become a teacher, I had to take a course so I could be qualified and I actually would have the knowledge to know what's best for my student. So that's why I took the CELTA course and I'm a CELTA certified teacher. So that's it about me. And now let's move on to the presentation. So today I'm going to talk about this topic, overcoming the challenges of teaching English to adults. And basically, I chose this topic because, as I told you, you all, I started learning English when I was 19. So when I was a young adult. So I basically that's all I know about English, like learning as an adult. I didn't have a chance to learn as a teenager or as a kid. And I know what people go through, and that's why I want to share with you what I went through and what I see my students going through. What are the main challenges that adult students face while studying English? I'm sharing 6 of them with you today during the presentation. The first one is time constraints. The second one, motivation and engagement. The third one, fear of exposure. Fourth one, handling fatigue and stress. Fifth, unrealistic expectations. And lastly, we're going to talk about the use of new technology. The first one is quite common, and I guess you all know that time is a big problem for adults. They usually have limited study time, they don't attend many classes, and they have difficulty establishing a routine. And why does that happen? That happens for many different reasons. So students, they have many other things in life. They have to work, they have to pay the bills, they have a social life, they have to take care of family, they have many other things to do, like in they have to do on a regular basis. And English is just one of them. And sometimes as teachers, we think that giving flexibility is the best way for them to be able to actually be to study, to attend classes, and that doesn't work that way. Over these 5 years that I have had my company, one thing that has worked really well for us is to have to make the classes and the study time a routine. Because once we make it very flexible, usually it's too flexible and they end up not doing what it's necessary, what's required. So what I would suggest you to first establish a routine. So they have this difficulty because it's always like, oh, you can have classes anytime you choose. Next week you can have class at a different time. So what you need to do, you have to talk to your student. You have to understand what he needs to do, to understand what are the gaps in his or her schedule, and you have to ask a very important question. Can we have classes every week at this time? Because once the person commits to this time and there is nothing competing for that time, then it's much easier for us to have students attending classes. And consequently, we have them establishing routines. Study time, it's something a bit more complex, but still, if you do the same if we use the same example, and if you ask the same type of questions for study time, when can you study? When can you actually spend some time consolidating what we have studied during classes? Then that's also effective and can help. It doesn't mean that by doing it you're gonna succeed, but you're certainly you're closer to success than you are to failure once you do what I'm telling you now. The other challenge that students face while studying English, especially adults, is motivation, keeping up the motivation and the engagement during classes. Why can they keep motivated? Because first of all, because of emotional barriers. Second of all, because of relevance of content. And third of all, because of competing priorities. Students, adults, usually they have had all the experiences before uh, studying. For example, at our school, they have had all the experiences before coming to our school. So we know that those experiences haven't been great because they still haven't learned what they're supposed to. They're still beginners, and that lack of progress, that frustration over the period that they were studying and they were not learning anything, those are they just put up like walls and they believe that they cannot overcome these barriers. How can you help them overcome those barriers? Is to show that first you need to understand what the what type of methodology they used, what they did during the period of time that they were studying, and understand why they didn't achieve and let them know why they didn't achieve. Because surely, if they didn't achieve something, it wasn't because of their skills. Like they're not skillful enough. They can't learn English. Those are not the reasons. But that's those are the reasons that they believe to be true. So we have to understand and to show them that whatever barriers they face then, they're not going to face in our course because of A, B, C, and D. Because, hey, you know this problem that you had, we're going to help you to overcome. Because of we doing this way, and you show that's going to be done differently. Number two, relevance of content. With adults, you have to be really careful with what topic you choose for the class. They want to learn something that they can use the next day. And if you give them something that they are not interested in or they believe it's not very useful, they're just not gonna keep showing up for classes. So as a teacher, you have to change, you have to understand your student, and you have to choose the right content for that student. So you have to you have to communicate at the end of every single class, asking what the student thought of that class that you just ran, and you have to ask about the next one. And next class, what do you want to learn? What do you want me to bring to class? That's something that very few teachers do. And the last one, competing priorities. Competing priorities, one second. Competing priorities is related to what we discussed before, which is time constraints. They have other things. They have social media. They have YouTube videos. They have, I don't know, work emails when they get back home. They have so many things competing for their attention. So if you're running a okay class, a not very engaging class, then it's very understandable why they don't show up to your classes. Because if it's not fun in a way, it doesn't have to be fun every day, but if it's not fun from time to time, if it's not engaging, then surely this person will not show up for class next time, and at some stage will drop out of the course. So those are the strategies that I recommend you use in order to keep students, adult students, motivated and engaged. Next one. So that's our third challenge, fear of exposure. That's a big one. First one inside fear of exposure is fear of making mistakes. You and I are both afraid of making mistakes. We are. That's just true. And our students, they are also afraid of making mistakes because they don't want people to think they're not capable, they're not good enough, and many other reasons. So what can you do as a teacher to help them to feel more comfortable? You If you give on the spot feedback, then you're gonna just put them on the spot. They're gonna feel like, oh, if they make a mistake and straight away you say, oh, that's not how it's said. Oh, this is not how you pronounce it. If you do those things at the time that the student makes a mistake, everyone else, if it's a group class, will understand that that person made that mistake. So you have to understand when it's the time to give that type of feedback or delayed feedback. That's one strategy that you can use. And usually you don't name mistakes. You wait for them to produce. You write down the mistakes. Then you just show up, or you show all the mistakes on the screen, and then you ask, oh, how can you improve this sentence? How can you change this? So instead of actually pointing out mistakes they make in front of the others. Performance anxiety. Beginners and intermediate students, they usually struggle with this because they know that they're not ready for any kind of discussion. Some teachers, they ask questions that are too advanced for beginners or intermediate students, and they become anxious. They become constantly anxious. So if you teach these groups, if you teach adults, you have to understand that you have to give, number one, you have to give them something at their level or slightly more difficult. And number two, you have to give them enough time so they can prepare for the task. People have this idea that, oh, everyone needs to have a conversation class, keep asking questions without thinking of what type of questions are being asked. And students end up not having a great experience. So something that you can do, the two things that you can do, as I just mentioned, understand the level of your student and give them enough time to prepare for the task. And number three, fear of peer judgment. That's very related to fear of making mistakes, but they are afraid. That's something that I actually haven't experienced. I experienced students that are afraid of peer judgment, but I haven't experienced peers judging them. So it's more something that's in their head, but you still have to address it. If they feel someone is going to judge them, you have to address it. So in that case, you just have to build a good environment in the classroom. You have to make sure. One thing that I do that works a lot is I have at our school we have group of 6. We have two different type of classes. Like, to be honest, we have 3. We have private lessons, we have double lessons, and then we have 6 group lessons. So for the 6 group, the group of 6 people that we have at our school, we usually put them in breakout rooms and then we pair them, so 2 in each room, and then we do that and we switch so they can get to know each other more. That helps a lot of they understand that the other students, they make the same mistakes that they make, and get a bit they become better friends, let's put it this way. So they know each other a bit better, and they feel like the others won't judge them as much, at least. So that's another strategy that you should use. You should build a good environment for students. So next challenge that adult students face is handling fatigue and stress. We talked about time, we talked about fear of exposure, and now we're talking about handling fatigue and stress. That's kind of related to the other things that we mentioned. And one of them is mental exhaustion from work. It's really hard for a student after a long day, making so many decisions at work, to come to class and have to spend energy that they don't have, to be really honest, to empty the tank. So exhaustion is a problem. And once the student shows up for class, you have to do something that will change their mood. Because when you're tired, when you're stressed, you're just not gonna learn anything during the class. You're just gonna be there. You're gonna be zoning out. You're gonna be thinking of other things. And by having a warm up that's more engaging, game or icebreaker, you're gonna bring that person into your class. This person that just showed up, but the body's there, but all the attention is somewhere else. You bring the person into your class, and then you can do your job after that. Another problem that they face, another factor, is stress about progress. They're tired, and they're also worried about getting better. You're like, oh, I don't want to be here, but oh, I need this. So they stressed that they need to get better, and usually they don't because they too stressed. They are thinking of something else. And how can you keep them? How can you take this away? This is stress. One way is by showing them how much they have progressed. Adults and some people, they just don't know how much progress they have made. They think they're just as bad as they were at the beginning of the course, that they didn't learn anything, they're not capable of learning. And you just have to show that's not true, and you have to give concrete examples. Hey, your pronunciation, like you used to pronounce many words incorrectly, and now you pronounce them correctly. Those are the words that now I can tell that you pronounce correctly. Oh, you used to hesitate a lot. You don't hesitate as much. You used to do this, you used to do that, and you keep on pointing out because, yes, they need you to point it out. But they know it. Sometimes they should know it, but they don't know it. So you have to let them know. Next one, lack of focus in class. Because they're exhausted, because they're stressed, they just they won't pay attention to your class. That's it. And how can you make them focus? By having an engaging class. Do you have a class? Do you have like long texts for students to read? Do you have long audios for them to listen to? If you do that, then that's it. It's over. They will never pay attention to your class. They're gonna come to class once, twice, and then they're gonna stop showing up just because you're not focusing on communication. You're not focusing on speaking. You have, at least as far as I know, if you want someone to speak English, you need to give them enough time to practice their speaking skills. And that's the thing that will keep them from losing focus in class. If you give them a speaking task, there's no way to run away from a speaking task. If I give you a reading exercise, you may just skip it. You may read half. You may do something else. I don't know. Use your phone and say, "Okay, I'm done." But when you have a speaking exercise, there is no other way. You have to do it, and that's really good because they feel good about it. They have to spend the energy. They have to practice, and that's the best way for you to keep them focused. But if you talk too much, if your TTT is high, TTT is a term that we use in English. That's teacher talking time. That should be as little as possible. So if the teacher keeps talking as I am right now, and no one interacting, and the students are just watching you, that's a recipe for failure. Your student will never pay attention to your class. Next one, that's, I guess, nowadays is one of the biggest one, which is unrealistic expectation. The internet is guilty of it, because now you can go on the internet and you're going to find many different unrealistic offers. So especially teachers, they offer things that no one can deliver, that has never been done before. Learn English 6 months, learn English in 3 months, learn English in, I don't know, by learning these 2,000 words. That's all you need. So all of these offers, they are just messing up with students because they believe to be true. They believe to be something new, a new methodology. And of course, they fall for it and they pay, they get courses and they get burned. They don't learn as much as they should. So the first one of these expectations is believing passive exposure is enough. Adults, they have learned throughout their lives, they have had many experiences. They've done primary, secondary, and high school, and they think that's how you're supposed to learn something, by sitting down, taking notes, and listening to someone speaking, like a teacher speaking, like something very passive. It's not very active. So just adults, they believe that to be true. So they believe they're going to buy a course, they're going to buy recorded classes, they're going to watch recorded classes, and by watching the recorded class, they will be able to speak, which is not true, and we all know it. So that's something that they think of, and you have to change. You have to teach them to raise their awareness of how you can learn, how can you actually speak English? How can you learn how to speak English? So you have to show them what's the path, and show that all the other offers, they point towards something that actually doesn't exist. So as a teacher, you have to do that. Otherwise, they still will show up to your class and you'll think that, I would just want to learn without saying anything. I just want to sit here. Don't bother talking to me. So that's what we need to make sure that we convey the message correctly and effectively, so the student knows what he needs for the future. It may be with you, it may be with another teacher, whatever, but you've played your role and you have helped someone else to understand how to achieve their goals. Number two, underestimating the importance of practice. Adults, I don't know if they actually underestimate or if they try to convince themselves that, I'm just going to show up for classes and I'm not going to practice anything after the class. But that's something that we need to keep reminding them, just as much as we need to keep reminding us of other things that we do. When we go to the gym and we have, let's say we want to lose weight, and it becomes a bit hard, and sometimes you want to just say, I don't need to stop eating sugar. It's fine. It's just, like I've seen other people doing it, so it's fine. We just start telling ourselves some lies, so you can feel good about it. So as a teacher, you cannot let this happen. You have to be actually educating your student on, hey, this is important for you. Like, you need to do this, of course, but you have to do it in a way that you convey the message, but it also you keep building rapport with your student, because you cannot just say because it's true and whatever. You have to be careful about it as well. You have to find the best way to convey that message. And lastly, expecting instant fluency. Adults, they expect instant fluency not because they want to, it's because they need to believe that. Otherwise, they're in too much trouble. And let me elaborate on this. Adults, when they come to you, like as a teacher, as an English teacher, they come with a problem, and the problem that needs to be solved now. So they just wanted to believe that, oh, it can be done. Sometimes they got a job offer, not job offer, like job interview. Others, they got a message from their bosses saying that they need to learn English, otherwise they're not going to get a promotion. So they only start their process, most of them, when something is critical. And therefore, they need to address it. They need to find a solution. And they end up expecting instant fluency. When I say instant, some of them, I don't know, need 4 months, have 4 months, others have 6 months, and it's just not enough time. And you have to be open, you have to be very honest, and you have to say, hey, this goal, we can try our very best, but I don't see us achieving it because of A, B, C, and D. You cannot be just, okay, let's try, and just to try to sell your course. You have to be honest. You have to show, hey, because of these factors, I believe the chances are really low. And therefore, we're going to work. We're not going to wait until you miss the next opportunity, but we are trying for this one, which I believe is really hard. And maybe for the next one, we're going to be prepared. What about that? So that's what you need to do as a teacher. And yes, we have to do all of these things that I have been mentioning because, and you may think, oh, Arthur, that's too much. You're just asking me to babysit my student. I'm not asking you to babysit your student. I'm asking you to be very careful and understand that a teacher these days plays a much complex role in teaching, and not only in teaching English, because you need to go above and beyond. You have to go much further than just teaching. You have to understand the person you're dealing with, and you actually have to take them where they wanted to go. If they want to be fluent, you have to find a ways to keep them motivated. That's beyond just teaching. You have to keep them motivated. You have to have a good relationship, and I will touch on that a bit later, more on that. Last point, last challenge that we're going to be discussing today, use of new technology. Some adults, at least from my experience, maybe 30% to 20% of the adults, they face this type of problem. So they're not technology literate. They are a bit resistant to technology. And when they face technical issues, they kind of freeze. So what can you do to help students? Because, for example, AM Consultoria is a school that deals with, we only have online classes. So necessarily, we have to use technology. We have to use a computer. We have to use video conference applications. We have to use websites, tools, and so on and so forth. So technology is necessary. And it's also required for students to know how to use the technology. And sometimes we think that just by telling them to click on here, click on this button, click on at this page, whatever, they will just figure the way to download, to use, to be able to use the tools that you're providing. And that's not how it works. You have to help them much more than this. You have to create tutorials. You have to show them exactly what they need to do. You have to create a step-by-step process showing, if you can do in a video, that's even better. If it's in writing, that's okay, but I much prefer video because they can just pause it, do the next step, play again, and keep on playing the video until they go through the whole process and they actually understand. And video seems to be more friendly to adults as well. So you have to teach them how to use the technology. You have to show them that technology is not rocket science, and you have to show them how to fix the technical issues that they go through. Because if whatever, the microphone stops working, if Zoom closes down, what you need to do to open it up again. If whatever, your camera, like how can you change your camera if they have two cameras? There are so many things that can happen during a meeting. They may have internet problems. You have to help them. And that's not something that you know once you start teaching, because you create your arsenal as you go through problems. So your student goes through one problem. You create one video, you send the link to the student, and then in 5 years, you're going to have maybe 30 videos just on technical issues or on also teaching them how to use new technologies. So that's a must, and you cannot overlook this area because it's really important. And some adults, they won't even ask you questions because they are too afraid of telling you that they are not they're not literate, technology literate. That's something that has happened. So guys, what I wanted to, just like a quick summary of what I've said. Sometimes we think that we need to go to class, show up, help them during the class, and that's it, which I believe not to be the right way, because we are teachers and we need to help them to achieve their goals, whatever it might be. And in order for us to help them achieve their goals, we have to understand what's stopping them from achieving it. If it's something besides teaching English, you have to find a solution for it and to help them throughout the experience, the whole way from starting a course to getting to their dream. Let's put that way. That's it. Thank you very much.